Hi, everybody. I just put all of your emails into what we call Microsoft Teams, and I think if you go online, you can somehow access it. Mr. Han's going to send you information about it, but just know that I am connected to it, so when you read about it from Mr. Han, you can send me a message. I already sent out a message to everyone, so maybe your parents or you can check the Lackawanna School District website, and maybe you got my email. I don't know. You can check it. All right. Our chapter today is called Colors. Julia opens a metal box. I see a row of little squares. Green, blue, red, black, yellow, purple, orange. The colors seem to glow. She pulls out a brush with a thin tuft of a tail at its end. She dips the brush in water and wets the paper, then taps at the red square. When the brush meets the damp paper, pink petals of color unfurl like morning flowers. I can't take my eyes off that magical brush. For a moment, I'm not thinking about Ruby and Mac and the claw stick and Stella. Almost. Julia touches red again, then blue, and there suddenly is the purple of a ripe grape. She touches the blue, and her paper turns to a summer sky. Blue and white, and now I see she's painting a picture of Ruby. I can make out her floppy ears and her thick legs. Julia stops painting. She takes a few steps back, hands on her hips, and gazes at her work. She scowls. It's not right. She glances over her shoulder at me, and I try to look encouraging. Julia starts to crumble up the paper, then reconsiders. What do you think reconsiders? Re means again, so she considers it again. That means she thinks about it. Instead, she glides it into my cage at the spot where the glass is broken. Here you go, she said, a Julia original. It will be worth millions someday. Gingerly, I pick up the paper. I don't eat a single bite of it. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. Julia turns to her backpack. She pulls out 3 plastic jars, 1 yellow, 1 blue, 1 red. She opens the jars, and an odd, not food smell comes out. Julia pushes the jars one at a time through the opening and then slides some paper. These are called finger paints, she says. My aunt gave them to me, but I'm too old for finger painting. I stick a finger into the red jar. The paint is as thick as mud. And remember what they used to call him when he was little? It's cool and smooth like bananas underfoot. I pop my finger into my mouth. It's not exactly a mango, but it's not bad. Julia laughs. Don't eat it. You paint with it. She grabs a piece of paper and presses her fingers on it. See? Like this. I place my finger on a piece of paper and lift it, and a red mark is there. I get a bigger glob from the pot and slap my hand down on the page. When I pull my hand off the paper, its red twin stays behind. This isn't like the ghostly handprints on my glass, the ones my visitors leave behind. This handprint can't be wiped away so easily. I lie awake, peeling dried red paint off my fingertips that night. Bob, who accidentally walked on one of my paintings, is licking his red paws. Every so often, I glance over at the empty ring. The claw stick glints in the moonlight. Stop! No! Ruby's frantic cries startle me. Ruby, you're having a bad dream. You're okay. You're safe. Where's Stella? She asks, gulping for air. Before I can answer, she says, never mind, I remember. Go back to sleep, Ruby. You've had a very hard day. I can't go back to sleep, she said. I'm afraid, and I have the same dreams. There's a sharp stick, and it hurts. I look at Bob, and he looks back at me. Oh, Ruby says, oh, Mac. She puts her trunk between the bars. Do you think Mac is mad at me because I hit him today? I consider lying, but gorillas are terrible liars. Probably, I said finally. He ran away after that, said Ruby. Bob gives a scornful laugh. Crawled away is more like it. We are quiet for a while. Branches claw at the roof. A light rain drums. One of the parrots murmurs something in her sleep. Ruby breaks the silence. Ivan, I smell something funny. He can't help it, said Bob. I believe she's referring to the finger paints that Julia gave me today. What are finger paints? Asked Ruby. You make pictures with them, I explained. Could you make a picture of me? Maybe someday. I remember Julia's picture, the one that will be worth $1 million. I hold it up to the glass. Look, it's you. Julia made it. It's hard to see, said Ruby. There's not much moonlight. Why do I have 2 trunks? I examined the picture. Those are your feet. Why do I have 2 feet? That's called artistic license, said Bob. Ruby sighs. Could you tell me another story? She asks. I don't think I can ever go back to sleep. I told you all I remember, I said with a helpless shrug. Tell me a new story then, she said. Make something up. I try to think, but my thoughts keep returning to Mac and that claw stick. Anything at all, Ruby said. I'm working on it. Ivan, Ruby presses. Bob said you're going to save me. I search for true words. I'm working on that. Ivan, Ruby says in a voice so low I could barely hear her. I have another question. I can tell by the sound of her voice that this will be a question I don't want to answer. Ruby taps her trunk against the rusty iron bars of her door. Do you think that I'll die in this domain someday like Aunt Stella? Once again I consider lying, but when I look at Ruby, the half-formed words die in my throat. Not if I can help it, I said. I feel something tighten in my chest, something dark and hot. And it's not a domain, I add. I pause and then I say, it's a cage. I look at the ring layered with fresh sawdust. I look at the soft skylight and the half-hidden moon. I just thought of a story, I said. Is it a made-up story or is it a true one? Said Ruby. True, I said. I hope. Ruby leans against the bars. Her eyes hold the pale moon in them the way a still pond holds stars. Once upon a time, I say, there was a baby elephant. She was smart and brave, and she needed to go to a place called the zoo. What's a zoo? Ruby asks. A zoo, Ruby, is a place where humans make amends. Amends means like you try to make up for something that you did. A good zoo is a place where humans care for animals and keep them safe. Did the baby elephant get to the zoo? Ruby asks softly. I don't answer right away. Yes, I say at last. How did she get there? Ruby asks. She had a friend, I say, a friend who made a promise. It takes a long time, but finally Ruby returns to sleep. Ivan, she whispers, yawning, what you said about the zoo, how are you going to do it? Suddenly I feel as I can sleep for 1,000 days. I don't know yet, I admit. You'll think of something, Bob says comfortably, his voice trailing off as his eyes close. What if I don't? I ask. Bob is already asleep. His little red feet dance, and I know he's running in his dreams. Bob and Ruby sleep on. I don't sleep. I think about the promise I made to Stella and the pictures I've made for Ruby, and I remember. I remember it all. We were clinging to our mother, my sister and I, when the humans killed her. They shot my father next. Then they chopped up all the grass around them and cleaned it up. There's a cluttered musty store near my cage. They sell an ashtray there that reminds me, it's shaped like the hand of a gorilla, and it reminds me of my parents. When morning comes and the parking lot glimmers with dew, I see the billboard on the highway. There I am, the one and only Ivan, bathed in the pink light of dawn. I look so angry with my furrowed brow and my clenched fists. I look the way my father did the day the men came. I am, I suppose, very peaceful. Mostly I watch the world go by and think about naps and bananas and yogurt raisins, but inside me, hidden, is another Ivan. I know I'm very strong. I could probably hurt a man. In the flicker of time it takes a snake's tongue to taste the air, he could taste revenge. He is the Ivan on the billboard. I stare at him at the faded picture of Stella, and I remember George and Mac on their ladders adding the picture of Ruby to bring new visitors. I remember the story Ruby told, the one where the villagers came to her rescue. I hear Stella's kind, wise voice that humans can surprise you sometimes. I look at my fingers, coated in red paint the color of blood, and I know how to keep my promise. During the days I wait. During the nights I paint. I worry when Mac takes Ruby into the ring. He carries the claw stick with him all the time now, but he doesn't use it. He doesn't have to. Ruby's not fighting anymore. She does whatever Mac asks. I close my eyes, I dip my finger into the paint. When I'm done with one piece of paper, I set it aside to dry. It's so small, just one sheet, and I'm going to need so many. I move on to the next and the next and the next. It's a giant puzzle, and I'm making the pieces one by one. By morning, my floor is covered with paintings. I hide the paintings under my pool of dirty water before Matt can see them. I don't want them to end up in the gift store selling for $25 a piece. These paintings are for Ruby, every one of them. Ivan, Ruby asks one morning when I'm trying to nap, why are you always so sleepy during the day? I've been working on a project at night, I told her. What's a project? It's a thing, a painting. It's a painting for you, actually. Ruby looks pleased. Can I see it? Not yet. Ruby pokes with annoyance at her rope foot. She takes a breath. Ivan, do I have to do the shows with Mac today? Ruby dips her trunk in the water bucket. That's okay, she said. I already know the answer. It's night again and everyone's asleep. I look at the picture I've just made. One of dozens. It's smudged and torn. It's a muddy blur. I place it beside the others lining my floor. The colors are wrong. The shapes are off. It looks like nothing. It's not what I'm trying to create. It's not what it's meant to be. It's not right, and I don't know why. Across the parking lot, the billboard beckons, as it always does. Come to the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan, mighty Silverback. If I could use human words to say what I need to say, this would all be so easy. Instead, I have my pots of paint and my ragged pages. I sigh. My fingertips glow like jungle flowers. I try again. I watch Ruby plod along the ring in endless circles going nowhere. More visitors have been coming, but not many. Max says Ruby's not picking up the slack after all. He says he's cutting back on our food. He says he's turning off the heat at night to save money. Ruby looks thinner to me, more wrinkled than Stella ever was. Do you think Ruby's eating enough? I asked Bob. I don't know. I'll tell you one thing, though. You're sure as heck painting enough. Bob wrinkles his nose. That smell is unbelievable. And I found yellow paint in my tail this morning. Bob isn't happy about my night painting. He says it's not natural. Now, while I look at my art, Bob sleeps on Not Tag. He claims he prefers her because she doesn't snore. He says her belly doesn't rise and fall and make him seasick. Do you remember who Not Tag is? Not Tag is Ivan's stuffed animal gorilla. What is this plan of yours anyway? Bob asks. If you explain it to me, I can help you out. He gnaws at his tail. Maybe I could come up with something that doesn't involve, paint. I can't explain it, I tell him. It's an idea in my head, but I can't get it right. And anyway, I'm almost out of supplies. I should have known I wouldn't have enough. I kick at my tire swing. It's splattered with drops of blue paint. It's not a smart idea that I had. I doubt that, said Bob. Smelly? Yes. Stupid? Never. And the next time I read, I'm going to read something called Bad Guys. Try to think about what the project is that Ivan's been working on. What is he trying to paint? Something that he says will save Stella and get her taken to the zoo. Must be a really great idea. See you next time.